Welcome back. You're watching Business Morning on Channels Television. On the program today, we're discussing the Monetary Policy Committee's decision to keep rates on hold. And of course, one of the reasons was that they expected that the decisions that were taken in November of 2014 were yet to adjust to the system, adjust to the economy, and so they wanted to ensure that those decisions that were taken were properly assimilated by the economy before they make any further movement. And I've been having a conversation with the Managing Director and Chief Executive of Financial Derivatives Company Limited. He's also an economist, Mr. Bismarck Rwani. Mr. Rwani is still here with me in the studio. Thank you so much for staying around. So just before we went on, that quick break, talked about the impact this decision might likely have on inflation rate. I know that, a lot of economists have actually said that inflation rate will rise in January, in spite of the fact that we had inflation rate at 8% in December.
Yeah, that was December. Comparing the December prices with December 2013. Now, the devaluation started October 22nd and accelerated into November. The transmission time between exchange rate changes and prices on the street is typically maybe 45, 60 to 90 days. What you're going to see in January is you're going to see an inflation spike, and then by this February, you're going to see inflation at about 11 to 12%. So it's going to be a pretty hectic spike. In fact, Bank of America said it this morning again that we're going to see some serious inflationary pressures because of the exchange rate pass-through into the economy. But there's nothing crazy about inflation going that high. The thing is that you have what they call a natural rate of inflation. As long as your growth is moving rapidly, you can actually absorb inflation. The problem we have is that we are going to be seeing inflation at a time when growth is actually going to be declining. And that becomes a real problem.
Yeah, it becomes a real problem because we know that the central bank has been trying to keep it within a certain, it doesn't expect it to exceed a band of 6 to 9%. And so if that happens, it begins to, throw up too many spanners in the work.
No, you see, Nigeria at this point is having a crisis of false expectations, both at the policy, government, corporate, and individual levels. We have not yet come to accept that we have a 58% drop in our income. There's no human being, no corporate body, no government in the world that will face a 58% drop in its income who is not going to suffer some pain. Right now, we are still in pretty much denial. 58% drop. If you came from $116 to $48 a barrel, right? I want you to imagine that your salary was 116,000 naira a month and they brought it down to 48,000 naira a month. You have to make some pretty interesting decisions. That is where Nigeria is. That's where we are. And so government, corporate, individual, consumer, everybody has to get used to the fact that we are not in the same place we were 3 months ago.
So what should we be doing differently at this time? Because we're not where we were as of June, when oil prices were $115 per barrel. As of this morning, oil prices are hovering around $46 and $47 per barrel.
Yes.
And so, apart from the monetary aspect, we always see, well, right now it seems like the monetary aspect has to be focused on very squarely. What else can be done?
No, first of all, accept it. You see, there's no point wondering and trying to blame anybody for it. We have no control over it. So accept that this thing has happened, then try to think of what everybody is going to adjust. Stop having false expectations. This is a crisis of false expectations. We have to reduce our expectations first and foremost of everybody. The central bank cannot manufacture dollars. The Ministry of Petroleum cannot manufacture dollars. So this is the situation. The point is that we had good years. What did you do with the money in the good years? If you squandered it, that's your own problem. But the reality today is that what we are going to earn in February is going to be less than half of what we earned in July. So what are you going to spend? Are you going to spend what? If you are asked to now look at your list of what you spent in July and say cut half of it off and let us deal with, that is the situation we face. And that's the reality. Let's call a spade a spade. These are hard times.
What about the reality of the interbank forex market? Interbank market, for instance, are we going to, see the rates continue to play up the way they are?
No. Eventually, whether we like it or not, we are going to have to unify those rates. Bank of America said this morning that they see the rate at 201.
That's for the naira to the dollar.
Yeah. So they see that coming by February, March.
Which means there's going to be more drawdowns on the forex reserves to continue to boost the naira, and the central bank will, of course, have to increase its dollar sales.
No. If you devalue the currency, right, or depreciate the currency in that direction, for every dollar you get, you are giving more naira. The naira you have is limited. So once you've given all the naira, you have no more naira. Therefore, the demand for dollars will drop because the price is higher, and therefore the reserves will be preserved. So it's a painful therapy, but we have to do it. You see, you can't wish your malaria away. You got to treat it.
Yeah, but then in a situation where we have a lot of companies that still, like the central bank pointed out, rising dollarization, we still have a lot of companies that do transactions in dollars. And so they're the ones that usually come to the forex market to sell their dollars, to fulfill their local obligations. And so when we have a lot of this liquidity or a lot of this seeming dollar increase, and then we don't have enough naira to, offset the destiny, it's really worrisome.
It's two ways. First of all, the dollars are coming, but the oil companies are coming to their joint venture cash calls. Because the price of oil has come down, because the commitments they have and the price of rigs have actually come down, they are bringing less dollars into the country than they used to bring before. On the other hand, there's a lot of naira looking for dollars to bring in raw materials or pay school fees or pay for all sorts of things. But that naira is also limited. So in another month or two, you'll begin to see a lot of people who were considered extremely wealthy, extremely affluent, having to make some serious adjustments. So we will have a country in 6 months' time of a lot of former rich men, right? And they have to get used to the fact that they're former rich men. That's the reality.
So going forward, now what are those situations that will be closely monitored by the monetary authorities?
First and foremost, the monetary authorities are going to engage JP Morgan and tell the index administrators that, look, we have liquidity. Two, the central bank will have no choice, and I think the governor alluded to that, than to review consistently the net open position of the banks, working with the banks to ensure that supposed illegitimate transactions and all sorts of ineligible transactions are not put on the table. Thirdly, they will have to have a strategy of moving towards an interbank system and drop the RDAS sooner or later. The RDAS will have to go, right? So when we have an interbank system, then we will have a two-way quote, and the currency moves towards a convertible currency. And convertible currency for tradables, but not capital account. Then, at this point, the naira begins to find its true value. At the true value, the demand for dollars will not be as high as it is. So a lot of people will say, rather than go to England for medical treatment, I go to India. Rather than go to India, I'll go to my native doctor or something. I'll do something pretty radical, right? Rather than send my kid to school in England, I'll look for a good school in Nigeria. So there's some functionality in adjustment. It brings us down to reality. And the country becomes more competitive. It makes us become more reliant on our domestic resources.
Makes us look inward.
We look inwards and become more efficient and competitive. Right? And that's the name of the game. Nigeria has always performed better under pressure. They don't, when there's prosperity, people just forget it.
But Nigeria hasn't had to face this kind of pressure before.
They have. The graphs to show it. We faced it. The point is that every time we faced it in the past, there was maybe a military coup or something. We faced it in 1974, 75. We faced it in 82, 83. We faced it in 87. And we faced it in the 90s. The price of oil was $10 a barrel in 1999. When Obasanjo came into government, before then, it dropped to $10. Before it went up, and went all the way to $140. And we've been riding this boom for so many years. So now the question is, what did you do with the large monies you had? Yes, we used part of it to pay off our debt and get a concession from the Paris Club. we use part of it to do certain things. But quite frankly, if you look around, you can't say that we did not squander our good years.
Well, Mr. Ariwani, I'm sure we're going to still have a conversation on that one. But thank you so much for coming on the program today and sharing your thoughts with us. Mr. Bismarck Ariwani is an economist and the Managing Director, Chief Executive of Financial Derivatives Company Limited. He shared his thoughts with us on the recent decision by the Monetary Policy Committee to keep rates unchanged. Status quo was maintained on policy. On monetary policy. November adjustments need time to take effect. That's what the MPC says. And the CBN has continued to reiterate its commitment to ensure price and currency stability. Well, that's the program for today. Of course, don't forget you can watch, if you missed out on this edition, on our youtube.com/channelsweb/videos channel. And also, don't forget the conversation continues after the program. Thank you for watching. I'm Harriet Agbini. Bye-bye.